There it is. Hey guys, what is up? This is the movie discussion pocket dimension where time does not exist. The only thing that matters is film. There's Jay and I'm Cole. We're back after a bit of a hiatus. Haven't done this since sometime like in the middle of August, but anyway, it's good to be back. I know it's kind of weird on a Thursday, but whatever. This is what worked. Oh wait, I got a bit of an echo there. Okay, I think it's gone.
Sorry about that.
Yes, sorry about that. Oh, no issues at all. But anyway, we're glad to be back. And maybe it's an elephant in the room. I've spent some time going over the various movies that we've covered on this show and the directors and all this stuff. And I've tried to put some stuff on the Twitter account there. Like I broke things down by decade and things like that. So maybe I'm sure like after doing over 4 years of this, it's kind of strange that we haven't done this director yet because he's, you know, a big, influential, popular director. But of course, this will be our first movie to finally focus on Tim Burton. It was very much and we've talked about him a lot just in passing on other shows because of his influence and the movies he's done. So we've talked about him before, but this is finally going to give us an opportunity to like directly talk about him and his career, because we're going to talk about Ed Wood, of course, because that's the movie, that's the topic. But we will also, I think, probably get into a discussion about Burton's career kind of as a whole. And I think we both sort of see things similar in that, like, he started out as such like a great, unique, interesting voice, and then over time, I don't know, he seemed to kind of lose it, and his movies have been a lot less good and interesting. But this is, I think, 1994, so this is still when he's making some pretty good stuff, and a sort of different kind of project for him to take on, doing sort of like a biography type movie. And the other thing is that I thought was weird is I don't know if we've really, except for with like one glaring exception, back when we did our not New Hollywood, when we did our Masters of Cinema or whatever film series with the directors from all over the world, the French one we did do Day for Night, which is a movie about making a movie. Apart from that, we haven't really done movies about like the industry or, you know, various people, you know, like that. So it's good to finally do one. So of course, this is about infamous sort of B movie director Ed Wood, who spent most of his year, pretty much his entire life, sort of toiling in obscurity. He didn't get famous until after his death, and that was really because he died in like 1978 or something like that, under really depressing circumstances. We'll talk about that because the movie stops. It's a good place for the movie to stop because things do not get better for Ed. He has a really depressing arc in life, and then like 2 years after he dies, these guys, I can't remember their names, were they Medvedev or something? These brothers, they came out with this book. And in the book, they named him like the worst director of all time. And I think they named Plan 9 as the worst film of all time. And that kind of resonated. And that's where people were finally taking notice of him. Right. So that he got some fame after his death because of that. And I can't exactly remember the circumstances, but I just know sometime in like the mid-90s, Ryan and I rented Plan 9 from Outer Space from Blockbuster because either we'd read something on the internet or perhaps in a magazine about it because it, you know, it had that reputation as the worst movie. So I did see Plan 9 a long time ago. I saw it when I was probably like 13 or 14, and it was interesting. It was definitely an interesting experience to see it. That's not the only time I've seen it. I've seen it since, and of course, I wasn't aware of this movie at the time. I saw this movie under weird circumstances. I don't want to make the story too long, but I didn't see it on video or in the theater. I saw it somewhere on my university campus. This was just almost exactly 20 years ago. This would have been September 2001 when I was newly arrived in Halifax and university, and I was hanging out with these people and this girl in particular, this British girl. And somehow through people they knew, they found out in like some building there was going to be a screening of a movie. And so that's how I watched Ed Wood. I watched Ed Wood in like, it wasn't like a theater, but it was kind of like a theater. It was, you know, it's projected on the wall, and that's how we watched it. And I remember when we left, like the British girl was like, "Well, that was shit," but it made a real impression on me because I thought, no, it wasn't. It was a good movie, you know. And so that was the first time I saw it, and I might have only seen it maybe once, not if that, since, even though I always knew it and I liked it. But I was going somewhere with this. But it just reminded me, oh yeah, the guy that did Plan 9. I had watched Plan 9, and I probably in the years since, even if I didn't watch Ed Wood again, I did watch a few more of his movies because why not? If you have the opportunity, they're certainly interesting and worth checking out just because how crazily bad they are. Yeah, well, it didn't last. She was one of those people that was really, I don't know. I very quickly figured out she was not as cool or interesting as she presented herself to be. She was always talking about sex and stuff, and she was like this amazing like free spirit that does whatever the fuck she wants. And I don't know, that actually wore thin on me pretty quickly, which is fine because I don't think she noticed me at all. It's more of a hanger on in the group. But anyway, yeah, so it's not that much of a brag, really. Or no, that wouldn't have been 2001 though. Yeah, this would have been a few years after that. Okay, it would have been more like 2007. Yeah. It would have been like my second stint. That's what it was. So it wasn't 20 years ago. It was 2007. It was my second stint. It was when I was because I went back. I was in a theater course and she was in the theater course. But anyway, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I can't believe we haven't done Ed Wood or Tim Burton on this channel yet.
But Burton, yeah, as a director, I have a weird kind of relationship with that he is
I'm a
not
huge
aware
fan
of.
of Burton.
That he's not aware of, obviously. But because I spent most of the last like 20 years trashing Burton, which is kind of unfair because you can't erase the good stuff that he's done. And I would count Ed Wood among it, although I do think it is a little maybe misunderstood. Maybe it's the type of movie people didn't want to see. I don't know. But for somebody like me who loves film history and things like that, it appeals to me. And I like that, the movie is shot like one of Ed Wood's movies, sort of like a cheesy B movie, which is why, Burton insisted to the studio that it would be in black and white, which was not something, studios were crazy.
I was going to say that he had a few successes before this. Is probably the only way he was able to make this movie. It's like a biopic in black and white. But I love Burton, and I even like a lot of his newer stuff. I know a lot of people don't, but Big Eyes I think is good. Mrs. Peregrine's House for Peculiar Children or whatever that's called was not bad. Yeah, a lot of stinkers in there, but I mean in the '90s I think he was batting 1,000.
Okay. Oh shit! Thought I was back.
You're back.
It's showing that Jay is cutting out, but I know it's me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm picking up right where I left. Oh, you can hear me now?
Yeah, I've been able to hear you the whole time.
Picking up right where I left off last night. Oh, you have? Okay. Yeah, for me, it's you. It was you cutting out, but I thought that meant that it was definitely me. Because I know you said you were a huge fan of Burton, but I didn't hear what you said before
that. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're finally getting a chance to do a Burton movie on here. Finally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
and maybe not an obvious one.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that's it. Just maybe not one of his more obvious ones to do.
Yeah, Dark Shadows.
I watched it once. I didn't hate it. I mean,
I didn't see Mank.
Johnny Depp tries really hard. Johnny Depp tries really hard in that movie.
What's up, Jamie?
Hello.
Yeah, they had such a great, working relationship for a while in a few movies, and then it just, they need to call it quits, I think.
Yeah. I mean, nothing lasts forever.
But no, I was saying earlier that in the 90s, I think he, didn't really have any bad movies. I like everything he did in the 90s.
Yeah, me too. No, yeah, like 80s, 90s. I mean, I've never really been a fan of Beetlejuice, but I don't dislike it by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm not as big of a fan of Beetlejuice as most people are. Like Edward Scissorhands is probably my favorite of his films.
I like it a lot. I don't know what my favorite is.
And then probably Batman Returns after that.
Yeah. And that's part of my complicated relationship with him, because sometimes I'm too weird about what I think Batman is supposed to be. Like, I guess I can accept it. It's just such a fairy tale Batman to me. But I mean, it's not like they aren't well done movies. It's not like they aren't visually great to look at. They have a really nice style. So I mean, I can definitely like them. It's just hard for me to get past the fact that like Batman's like a killing machine in those movies. He just murders people arbitrarily, which is really hard for me to get past. Like at one point, he like blows up an entire factory full of people, but we're not gonna dive into that rabbit hole. So I mean, and for years I was probably too hard on him about that. Like he ruined Batman. I mean, no, he didn't. I mean, in fact, I can always have to be grateful for how well that first one in '89 did, because without that popularity, there would not have been the animated show, which I think is the best show ever. Not best Batman show, just best show, period. And that there was no way that show would have happened without the success of that movie. Hell, they even used the same main theme from it, you know, so a really great main theme by frequent collaborator of Burton, Danny Elfman. You know, see, Pee-wee's another one. Pee-wee, I was, I guess, the right age for Pee-wee, but maybe I thought I took myself too seriously because I never watched Pee-wee's Playhouse as a kid. I thought it was dumb and random and for little kids, and I had nothing to do with it. I did not see any of the subtext that, you know, certain people might have seen. To me, it was just a bunch of silly nonsense. So
yeah,
I didn't like the character. I didn't like the show.
I watched it,
but no, I wasn't into it. I didn't like how loud and obnoxious it was. And I mean, I was a pretty little kid when this was on, and that was still my taste even then. And I don't think it's because I was so mature or anything. It was just my preference. There were certain things that I just were too wacky or whatever, just obnoxious for me. So yeah, the fact that Tim Burton did a Pee-wee movie meant nothing to me now. Then it means nothing to me now. But a lot of people point it out as a movie they like and remember fondly, and that's fine. But like, I've never seen it all the way through, and I really have no desire to, because I've never enjoyed the character. So I don't know if I could really watch like 90 minutes of it. But I'm sure it's probably pretty good. So that was the other thing. Like, there were a few things. One, right?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, he did. What was the second one?
Big Top Pee-wee.
Yeah, I don't believe that was Burton. I'll very quickly pull up Burton's filmography to double check.
Someone else.
Okay. Yeah, Pee-wee's Big Adventure was his first full feature film. Yeah, as I said, we'll save it because we have a movie to get into, but we can talk about like each movie and things like that as we go. But yeah, as I said, he's a very rare director in that I have like really mixed feelings on almost everything he's done. There's very few of his movies that I just hate or just love. It's more, I like this about it, but there's this thing about it that I don't like. You know, I'm very mixed on most of his movies. Like, he's like, some people might describe him as hit or miss, but he's not hit or miss for me. He's more like constantly in the middle, like doing things that I think are really cool and good, but there's some other thing that I think counteracts it and makes me not like it. What I like about this movie is I pretty much just like the whole movie. You know, I really do like this whole movie. It's not a masterpiece or anything like that, but I mean, I think it accomplishes what it sets out to do, which is to tell the story, somewhat romanticized, of a very interesting character. I mean, you know, Ed Wood had a very unique life, and in many ways a very sad and depressing life, but at the same time, oh, hey, Cable Channel, I'm doing all right, thanks. Good to see you. Thank you for asking. Just hoping I don't have any more connection issues. We did a live commentary last night, and I seem to cut out a lot, but fingers crossed going forward. But yeah, and we're gonna talk about that and stuff too, Ben. Like just the trajectory of his career. But I'm gonna go back to Ed Wood himself, who, I mean, this is a guy. He was a mix of, you know, relentless determination and, you know, ambition mixed in with kind of the complete lack of talent. But he was, I mean, the movie does romanticize some things, but I don't think it misrepresents, you know, Ed Wood's spirit. That, from what I could tell from what I've read, that was the guy. He was enthusiastic. He was, you know, he was always sort of looking on the bright side. He seemed to always have like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Glass half full, you know, type of philosophy, you know. I mean, this is a guy that dealt with setback after setback his entire life, but he always started to, you know, put the best spin on it, put on a brave face, and you do kind of have to respect that, I think.
Yeah.
And he was really good with people. He made a really great impact on the people he worked with. Because I mean, at the end of the day, what he was doing with these groups of like other people that worked on his films was they were making crap, but he did it in such a way that I think they enjoyed themselves and they didn't, they didn't feel bad or ashamed of it, because I think he turned it into an experience that they thought was a positive experience, even though the end product was pretty bad. So, I mean, it's a very interesting, endearing character. And I mean, the cross-dressing thing is true. It's 100% true. I mean, I've looked into it. He wasn't just making stuff up or lying so that he could direct that movie. The cross-dressing was true. In fact, even the story he tells about fighting in World War II with ladies' undergarments on, that is true.
Wow.
The part where he pulls out the front teeth and shows it to the kid and he says, "I lost them in WW2." He did. He did lose his teeth fighting in World War II. A Japanese soldier smashed a rifle butt into his mouth and knocked out his front teeth. So, while the movie, of course, is going to take a few liberties, it does really have a lot of truth to it, which is good because he was such a colorful character. It's not like they had to make up a bunch of stuff. So yeah, that stuff was all true about his cross-dressing, his love of it, and his attitude towards it, and his experiences in World War II. And I mean, he was already in this world beforehand, because in the 40s he actually worked in a freak show. He was a bearded lady in a freak show. So even before he grew his own like private personal freak show around him as he went forward making his movies, he'd already had a foot in that world. But what he'd always wanted to do was make films. He was like most filmmakers. He grew up loving movies and wanting to tell his own stories. And because of his lack of breaks and lack of talent, he was extremely limited in what he could do. But I mean, and that's where Johnny Depp really comes in and shines. I think he gives such an endearing, honest performance that you do root for this guy. I think. I mean, there might be the odd person that is just annoyed, but I don't think so. I think he's a very sympathetic type of character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm drawing a blank on her name now. Sarah Jessica Parker. This is
Right.
I guess it was his first wife. Is that his wife? Yeah, they were married, right?
I think so.
Who I think has Angora sweater on every time she's on scene.
Right.
I don't think she's ever not wearing one.
And it's a sweater he loves wearing.
Yeah.
That he always would wear in secret, because he kept it a secret from her until he started shooting Glen or Glenda. He kept it a secret, and he kept it a secret from people to that point. So you can say there was something very cathartic about Glen or Glenda. By the way, I would say Glen or Glenda is a worse movie than Plan 9, because Plan 9 has that goofy charm to it. It's so bad it's good. Glen or Glenda is just painful nonsense.
I couldn't get through it. I couldn't finish it.
And we'll get there when we get there. But I would, if you're gonna, I don't know if it's the worst movie ever made, but it's up there for worst movies ever made, because I think Plan 9 has just a goofy charm to it, right? Like it's awful, it's terrible, but it's not like it's necessarily hurting you. You're just kind of laughing at how silly and dumb it is and all the mistakes they make. Whereas Glen or Glenda is just I don't know, madness, and just terribly slapped together.
Don Mancini must like it quite a bit. To name the character in Seed of Chucky.
I've still never seen Seed of Chucky. I'd like to. Seems weird that I've seen all the Chucky movies except that one.
I don't. He wants to be a girl. He's a doll. I mean, a male doll. He wants to be a girl doll. I think his name goes from Glen to Glenda.
That's funny.
Which I never knew Don Mancini was gay until a few years ago. Not that matters.
I think I knew that, but I don't remember how. Just one of those things you pick up somewhere, I guess. But I mean, I really like Burton's. Oh, so go ahead, yeah.
I was going to say real quick, he's got a new TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel, Child's Play TV show.
Yeah, I've heard of that for a while, that it's finally coming out, huh? Yeah, that was in
I guess. I'm not sure when it's coming out. Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, I heard about it maybe as long as maybe 3 years ago. I think I heard about it. It's been at least in the concept stage for a while, because I heard about it quite a while ago. And I didn't, I wasn't following it, keeping up what was going on with it. It was being shot or what, but I do remember reading some stuff. Yeah, maybe as long as at least 2 years ago, maybe 3. But I'd check it out, I guess. I'm not a massive fan of those movies, but they have a familiarity to them, so I'll watch
October
them.
12th.
Oh, there you go.
October 12th is when that premieres.
I'll probably check it out if I can, because I don't know why not. It's never been a franchise I have strong feelings about, but like I said, it's familiar. Yeah, Leonard Glenda is definitely very, very boring. It's just sort of very mundane scenes that don't necessarily fit together very well, because I mean, what's great about Ed Wood in a way is just like how he was bad across the board. He didn't have good actors to work with in the first place, but he couldn't get good performances out of them. He didn't even really try to, because he was always concerned about time and budget, which were real things. Like, he just pretty much did as much as he could in one take. They'd be like, you don't even want to do another one, just for security? Be like, no, good, moving on. And you see that in this movie. And while a part of it was necessity, I do think eventually he just came to believe, no, it's good. He would just convince himself, perfect, no problems there. And you see a bit of that in the thing, like when they're doing Bride of the Atom, and the wrestler guy hits the door, and the whole set shakes as they go through. And like, don't you want to do it again? He hit the door. And he's like, no, I think it's more realistic, because that character would really have to deal with that problem. Like that, yeah, but they don't say it, but it's implied, but the whole thing's shaking, showing that it's a fake set,
Yeah.
But he's like, no, and he's just coming up with ways to justify it. But I was just, anyway, getting back to just sort of start over in a way. I think what really makes the movie work, besides, of course, it being carried by a really good performance by Johnny Depp, is the way Tim Burton chose to present it, which I think is clever. It's a black and white B-movie style movie about a guy that lived in that world and created those things. And I know that whenever you find out about a modern movie in black and white, they always have pushback from the studio saying, no, black and white is risky. Yeah. People don't want to see black and white, and he's like, no, that's the way this has to be done. And I get it. Like, they're like, well, this isn't Schindler's List, but I mean, he was right. Black and white is the way this movie should have been done. And I'm glad it was, because it really, it sucks you into that world, I think, which was a real world. I mean, it seems unreal, but it was real, which is another thing that's kind of interesting about it.
I mean, I get the studio's perspective on that, because I actually had an aversion to black and white when I was younger. So that's probably why
I can understand it. Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, black and white just means old and boring. Yeah. Really. It's what the first thing you think of. It's probably old, so it's probably slow paced and boring. I mean, plenty of black and white movies are slower paced, but yeah. But I mean, as people, I think not everybody grows out of it, but I think we did. You grow out of it and you're like, okay, you got to give stuff a chance and not just prejudge it on something, something that's so, I need a thesaurus tonight. I can't, my vocabulary is fading me, but so surface, not the heart of the movie, really. It's a cosmetic thing. Maybe that's what I was looking for. Something more cosmetic. Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's not like you can just say the way a movie looks doesn't matter. A movie is a movie. It's a visual thing. It's the main visual. So you want it to look good, but I just mean you have to train yourself out of thinking that black and white, by definition or whatever, looks bad or looks drab or whatever. So, but yeah. But it's really hard for me to picture this movie. Yeah. It is. And I think it was definitely the right choice here. And maybe that did contribute to the movie not doing well, because the movie did not perform well, which seems to be completely in line with Ed Wood. The irony being, this is the arguably the worst director of all time in a story helmed by one of the most successful directors of all time. And then the movie itself was not actually initially successful, although critically it's rebounded nicely. I think it has some pretty good scores, and most critics speak mostly highly of it. So it does have that going for it. But yeah, it was a box office disappointment. And I'm sure the black and white had a lot to do with it, because people are like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, clearly, Burton has an affinity just for that world. I mean, he did Mars Attacks, which, while in color, is again a salute to cheesy sort of 50s era sci-fi movies. So I think the other story that's sort of being told here that I like a lot is between the two directors. I think that although they never met or anything, I think that, I think he felt a certain kinship with this director. I think he did. I think Burton saw some things of himself in him, and there's a nice little parallel to that towards the end where couldn't find out if it really happened. It seems extremely unlikely it happened, but you remember the scene where he's feeling down and he goes in and he randomly runs into Orson Welles and they have that little talk.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that ever happened, but it's nice because I think it's sort of like it is because you have like one of the greatest directors of all time talking to the worst director of all time, but they still share common ground. He's talking about studio interference and how he has to deal with this problem, that problem, and how he has problems. And you see our series in Orson Welles, we really get into it, how the fact that, well, Orson Welles would eventually enjoy that amazing reputation. It didn't kick in right away. And Orson Welles basically from the 50s on was on a self-imposed exile. He left Hollywood. He was so frustrated because he couldn't get funding for his movies. And then he, did a bunch of movies in Europe where he had to get creative and find producers to fund his movies. And he talks a little about that. And the timing of the movie would have been 1957. So he's talking about his frustration. He doesn't name the movie, but it's a movie we covered in the Orson Welles thing. It's for Touch of Evil. He says, they want me to cast Charlton Heston as a Mexican. He's like, it's so frustrating. And that is what they had to do. Charlton Heston, as we point out, plays a Mexican guy in Touch of Evil. So I like that. So that probably is artistic license. That conversation probably never actually happened, but I like that. I think it again speaks to sort of the link and kinship that that Burton feels for Wood. It's like we had vastly different experiences, vastly different careers, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, we were both filmmakers who wanted to tell a story through film, and we had passion for it, And I like that a lot. And that again, that's another reason why I think the movie is so good and works so well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Jake.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, you see that in the stories that they tell. Del Toro too. The new Del Toro movie that's coming out has a foot in that world. It seems to have something to do with like freak shows and that kind of era.
Oh, cool.
So I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, you can find there's a not too bad trailer. It doesn't seem like it's too spoilery. Yeah, and it's got a lot of narration done by Willem Dafoe, who's obviously some sort of like carnival barker guy. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to.
I think it's probably in the case of Burton, it's something he went to the well too many times on. I think you get to that point of diminishing returns. Because, like, I think that's kind of what Dumbo is, too. He tried to play up, like, the sideshow part of Dumbo, and it's like, that's not the point of Dumbo, man. Dumbo's not dark. Dumbo's not about the sideshow stuff. It's a heartwarming tale about an elephant, And I think Tim Burton was just too caught up in, like, he's like, oh, like, I love the era. I love the sideshow aspect of it. But anyway, we're not going to dissect everything. But as
Dumbo's
I said, later on, we will talk. Yeah, it's not good. It's basically like he, in Big Fish, he'd cast Danny DeVito as like so that he was like the ring announcer guy there. He's like, you can just do that again for Dumbo, except now you're not a werewolf. Although maybe he wanted him to be.
Man, on paper, that sounds like a fucking great movie.
Yeah.
Live action Dumbo directed by Tim Burton, Like I was kind of excited for it, but.
By this time, I knew not to be. Plus, Dumbo is one of the ones I hold really high. I really, really like Dumbo. Like, that's probably top 10 in the animated canon for me. It's a very simple story, but it just hits me. I really like it. I've always really liked Dumbo. And I've seen it a lot by virtue of having taped it off TV a million years ago. So I had it on tape, not like, officially, but just taped off TV. And I used to watch it a lot with a few other things. So repetition helped too, I guess.
Right.
Give it credit. It's a movie from 1941 that has like our main underage character getting drunk.
Yeah.
That's kind of daring. Getting so drunk he hallucinates. It's like, what's he drinking? Absinthe?
It happens. Yeah. It's so drunk.
Pink elephants on parade.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, but this time I had turned on Burton because that is his last feature film 2 years ago. So by this time, I turned on Burton, years before. For me, it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that I hated, and then 5 years later he did Alice in Wonderland, and that's by then. So 2005 I'd wavered, but one film wasn't enough to make me just like turn on him. But Alice in Wonderland again, even higher than Dumbo. How much I love Alice in Wonderland. So seeing him like do that to that, and then come back for a fucking sequel. Oh man, yeah. So but then
he did the sequel too
again. Yeah, but
Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Which Johnny Depp was also in.
Doesn't say here that he did Through the Looking Glass.
I thought he did.
Somebody else did Through the Looking Glass. But even if he didn't, it was all based on the foundation. It was all based on the foundation he'd done. So anyway, so that's what it was. And then he had... Yeah. Wow, so I mean, he's... as I said, I'm a little too hard because he's definitely done more good stuff than bad. It's just like the bad stuff is stuff that I really enjoy and take personally. It's hard. And when I'm feeling really angry, when I'm feeling like a real dick about it, like I said, like then I'll throw Batman into the mix too, which isn't fair because there's stuff about Batman I like. But when I get going, I'll be like, you ruined Alice in Wonderland, you ruined Dumbo, you ruined Batman. No, okay. I'll slow down. I'll pump the brakes.
Willy Wonka.
Batman. That's just Willy Wonka. Yeah.
See, he ruined Willy Wonka. But he ruined it.
100%. 100%. And that's one of the worst performances that Johnny Depp has ever given. I mean, the writing is to blame too, but Anyway, I don't want to jump all over the place. Let's stay on this movie because, as I said,
I know we'll get there, but I think it started with Planet of the Apes. The downfall.
Yeah, that was his first like sort of remake thing, right? Before that, he hadn't done remakes. Yeah, and then you could say Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So you could say that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you can say whatever you want. You can call it a reimagining or whatever. It's still a remake. Alice in Wonderland, you can call it whatever you want. It's still a remake. So yeah. Dumbo is obviously a remake. Yeah. Dark Shadow's a remake. I mean, it's just like, and that's another sort of sign that somebody was so creative to begin with. And I'm not saying like you can't adapt something because everybody does, but I think he leaned on that too much too after starting with some stuff that was just completely creative. And I get it, that doesn't last forever. Nobody can just keep endlessly coming up with amazing original ideas. So as I said, Tim Burton's a very unique director to me, and like how hard I can go and shit on him, and then I have to pull myself back and say and be reasonable and remember like the stuff that's good that you liked. Like don't get that doesn't erase the good stuff he did. The only reason that's hard for me is, like I said, is it's not as simple as early career good, late career bad. It's more complicated than that for me, and that's one of the reasons. Like I don't hate Beetlejuice at all. I just never understood why people liked it. I'm not a fan of Pee Wee Herman as a character, so it wouldn't matter who the hell directed it. So those movies don't go in my favor, and then my very complicated relation and reaction to the Batman really muddies things up. So it's not as simple as me saying I used to love Burton and then he sucked. It's more like I loved what he was capable of, but I didn't always love what wound up on the screen.
But, yeah.
And that's not something I can say about very many directors. So it makes him unique.
I think you kind of touched on it earlier. Like he's kind of got this style he's settled into that I really think he needs to step outside of his wheelhouse. And I mean, he did with a few films like Big Eyes. Like you wouldn't even really know that's a Tim Burton film if you just watched it. It doesn't scream Tim Burton like a lot of his films do.
Right. It proves that he can maybe step outside of it. But
Miss Peregrine, you could totally tell that's a Burton film. But not in a bad way.
That one I haven't watched. I've heard it's okay. I haven't watched it.
I'd recommend it. I mean, it's not terrible. It's probably more of a kids movie than anything, but check it out.
I guess that's the only movie of his I haven't seen, because I haven't seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure all the way through, but I've at least seen parts of it. I've seen, I think, every other one.
You saw Big Eyes?
No, I haven't seen. Yeah, I haven't seen all of. I was going to say, but again, I guess he didn't do it. I was going to say I haven't seen all of Through the Looking Glass, but apparently somebody else took over the reins for that. I'm just going to see what. I'm just going to see what name wound up with Through the. Well, again, it was all built on his foundation. So let's see who actually directed Through the Looking Glass. James Bobbin.
Oh, James Bobbin.
British guy, yeah. Oh, he's a cool guy. He's friends. He was one of the co-creators of Flight of the Conchords.
Oh, okay.
His big Hollywood break was he directed the Muppet movie in 2011. He's done some okay stuff.
It was a good movie. Muppet
In
movie's
fact,
not
he'd
bad.
only done Muppet. Yeah, he did those 2 Muppet movies. This was his first non-Muppet movie. He did the Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted. Then he wound up with Alice Through the Looking Glass, which fair enough. And he just did that Dora the Explorer movie where they like age her up.
Oh,
And I guess he has
I
some
saw that
some
one.
stuff coming. But anyway,
We'll talk about
you
that
saw
off
that?
air. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that seems right. But anyway, I'm trying to think how to get it back to the movie at hand now. As I said, like we have a lot of feelings and opinions on Burton as a whole in his career, and so there's a lot to sift through. But I mean, getting back to this movie, yeah, I just really appreciate the presentation. You know, it opens with like Criskin or whatever, you know, coming out of the coffin and telling us about like this thing, and it's got the bizarre 50s sci-fi music, but it's a weird mashup. And that's the other thing that it's one of the reasons why, of course, Bela Lugosi, a real person who's a big important character in this movie, like there's a couple reasons why Lugosi, his career sort of ended up the way it did. Because this picks up, it's 1952 or 53. Bela Lugosi has been largely forgotten, hasn't worked in years, and is not even really respected for what he used to do. And there's a few reasons for that. One is we've endlessly talked about how in the 1930s, the Hays Code kicked in the middle of the decade, and that really clamped down on horror movies, what you could do in them. Horror movies continued, but they couldn't be as good or as impact. And I think that really hurt somebody who had given such a sort of mature, scintillating performance in, of course, his signature role, Dracula. And then when you get from the 40s, the Gothic stuff was still hanging on. But by the time you get to the 50s and you're, it's post World War II, the atom bomb has been revealed to the world. It becomes the atomic age, right? So we're ushering in the first era really of sci-fi and a lot of that 50 sci-fi. So Bill Lugosi was the furthest thing from that. He was old school Gothic horror, and he couldn't change with the times. And the other thing, of course, is that Bill Lugosi, I think, was Hungarian, and so his English was never great. So he struggled with that. You know, Boris Karloff was English. So no problems there for a guy like Boris Karloff. Very Russian-sounding name, but he was an English guy. And the movie, it's never really been made 100% clear the relationship those two actors had. The movie presents it that Lugosi was very resentful of Karloff and always pretty much hated him. Like the movie has him saying, Karloff was no talent hack, and I can't believe his career turned out better than mine. And he's resentful. There's evidence that supports that, but there's also evidence that supports that maybe they did get along, or maybe they had a rift, but then later they did patch it up. I don't know. The movie goes hard in this direction, and I don't take any issue with that. As far as Martin Landau's performance, it's very good, but they do take some liberties with Lugosi as a person. For instance, Lugosi, they have him as part of his anger, like regularly like swearing and stuff. Those people that knew Lugosi said he never swore. He did not use profanity at all. So, yeah. He also did not keep little dogs. And he did not actually have a propensity for sleeping in coffins. But because the other thing in this is they have him a little too into his role of Dracula, where sometimes he seems to literally think he is Dracula. By all accounts, Lugosi, did not think that. Like he did take the Gothic thing and his persona, but he didn't really seem confused about that. But again, we're heightening some of the drama, some of the stakes in the movie, so I don't mind.
Apparently, he did have a propensity for morphine. Apparently,
yes,
that is a true thing.
That is true, and that's another part of his decline, right? Is that he got an addiction to morphine and wound up going to rehab for it. And I mean, his death is like sad, dying basically in obscurity, and then a couple decades later, that's kind of what happened with Wood himself. Except Wood was never famous to begin with, and I'm glad that the movie ends where it does, because things just get really depressing after that. And the movie can seem depressing enough because, I mean, as much as he's trying, he's just making crap. But it is crap that will someday be remembered somewhat fondly. It's an interesting legacy. Like, you always wonder, like, everybody knows that I have taken plenty of pleasure on this show, on other shows, The Sausage Factory years ago, or in ripping into stuff. And I try not to do that too much, because at the end of the day, the world doesn't need a bunch of negativity. And I mean, as much as I might enjoy ripping into something on YouTube, I mean, at least, I'm not one of those assholes that watches a YouTube video, and if I dislike it, I feel the need to leave some sort of negative comment. Like, there's no point in doing that. Like, I don't understand people that think, I really need this person to know that I didn't like this thing. And it's always some stupid fucking thing, but they think it's important. I especially like the people that'll say, like, no offense, but, like, yeah, then...
Well, your review sucked.
yeah, or like, I can't stand your voice. It's like, oh, okay,
Your
I'm so glad.
face.
I'm really glad that
Yeah.
this person I've never heard of and seen and never will has informed me of this. Thank you. You know, this will, this, you know, anyway. So I just mean, so the one thing I wonder is like, how good is it for somebody like Wood's legacy, if you want to call it that? His legacy is a legacy of crap. But I just mean he died in obscurity and then he's brought back sort of to the public consciousness by that book and being named the worst director of all time, Golden Raspberries and all that stuff. Like, I don't know how good that is for anybody or society, but in a way, I guess it's good because it did bring some attention to a guy that didn't have talent, but gosh, he had passion and he tried really hard. So I'm
Hmm.
conflicted about that too. I'm always conflicted about things like that because I do see there is sort of a positive side to it, but I'm like, at what cost though? Like, I mean, it just seems like taking cheap shots at someone who's dead, you know? So I am a little conflicted about that.
Well, this movie I feel like really presents him in a pretty positive light. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, as far as the cross dressing thing, whatever you want to call that, it's pretty groundbreaking, honestly. Like for that time, for him to have, I mean, it's a cliche term,
The
but the
balls.
bravery to, yeah, exactly, the
Yeah.
balls to, pun intended, to be able to, do that. Because I mean, I could imagine people would fucking kill you for that stuff back then, man. You
Yeah.
know,
They would.
I mean,
Yeah.
they would call you a
They like,
fag and kill you, man.
yeah.
I can only
Harsh
imagine.
as hell. I think it. Well, I mean, one thing it did prove was like one his like passion for film, and also it kind of showed what an insulated world film can be. Because there's a part where just before his first wife leaves him, you know, she's flipping out because he's directing now. It, you know, fully cross dressed, and she's like, "I
Hmm.
can't believe you're doing that." He's like, "You're the only person that seems to bother." She's like, "That's because this
Right.
isn't real. You've surrounded yourself with a bunch of freaks." And
Yeah.
you know, she's right in a way, but it, you know, it also proves that like I mean, I don't want to word this right because I'm not one of, you know, I'm not on either side of this, but it's so annoying when like, you know, Hollywood acts like they lead the way for being super liberal and teaching everybody, you know, no, nobody likes that. That's annoying. But this does seem kind of like an example of, but again, this isn't main Hollywood. You know, these aren't the main players. You know, this is the bottom of the rung. And I think that's the difference because you know what? I think if he had been a successful director, you know, if he was like, I don't know, Howard Hawks or something, I bet you if Howard Hawks came out as a crossdresser, ruin his career, destroy him,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
He had
And
no
if being
career
in
to
the
ruin,
50s,
so yeah.
they probably say he was a commie too and put that on, you know. I mean, he's lucky he was so low down the ladder that, you know, there was no point in anybody naming names and saying he was definitely a commie or whatever. Because, like, as I said, like, was pointing out, you know, it's a film about outcasts and things like that. Like, that was
Right.
one good thing about being a failure was that he was off people's radar, you
Hmm.
know. So that actually, in a way, helped him. So it's interesting because you always think, you know, poor guy. You know, if maybe he could have had some breaks, he could have been more successful. But then you think, well, how could he have been more successful? Like he just did not have talent. It's pretty clear. And yeah, I mean, it's sad all around, but the movie is good because you can take the positive out of it. You see his passion, and you see that he did wind up in a circle of friends that cared about him. You know,
Right.
they weren't making fun of him and they weren't feeling sorry for him either. And you also saw that as low as he was, he cared about people. He wanted to help Bella. You know,
Right.
he really did. I mean, Bela Lugosi, his life and ending is sad, but at least he gave him some purpose in the end. You know, he put him in some movies, and the I mean, the first one is hilarious. Like Glenn or Glenda, he in no way fits in. He's just like, okay, you do some spooky narration, and I'll just cut and paste it in the movie, even though it makes no sense. I mean, it's a movie about a man who reveals himself to be a cross-dresser, and it already has a narrator, but still you have a scene of gothic Bela Lugosi screaming about fate and going, "Pull the string, pull the
Yeah. Yeah.
string," while stock footage of Buffalo run in the background. It was the other thing, right? He used a lot of stock footage because he didn't have obviously the money or the resources. So he filled stuff in with like random stock footage. I mean, it's so hilarious and sad at the same time. It's baffling. But I just mean it
Well,
was to give Bella a part. It's like, where does Bela Lugosi fit into this movie about a crossdresser? Nowhere. There's no logical place that he fits in, but I'll fit him in anyway because I want to give the poor guy a job, you know? And that's what he would do with like other movies. I mean, at least in like Bride of the Atom, he's playing a mad scientist. It makes sense. But
yeah.
and his part, although he died beforehand, you know his part in Plan 9 makes sense within the context of that batshit crazy movie. yeah, we'll talk about some of the actors. Yeah, so I've forgotten his first girlfriend or wife was Sarah Jessica Parker. There's a great meta moment in that where at the very beginning of the movie, before he enters the film industry, he's we see the performance by one of his plays. It was probably the play Casual Company, which he wrote about his own experiences during the war. And she comes down and it's like a weird angel. And there's a part where they're all gathered together to read the reviews and they're getting slammed. And she's like, "Do I have a horse face?" And I'm thinking, "Yes, you're Sarah Jessica Parker. Of course you have a horse face."
That's hilarious.
So even in 1994, I get the feeling that she was probably getting shit for that. I think that was probably I don't think that's from history. I think that was like a Sarah Jessica Parker thing. It seems so on the nose that I feel like Sarah Jessica Parker's like, "Hey, in reviews people say I have a horse face. Why don't we put that in?" That's kind of what I feel like happened.
Man, I can't believe they were saying that all the way back then.
Yeah. Wow. Anyway, I'm not gonna go all misogynistic on her. I don't like her as anything. It has nothing to do with her or not. I find her attractive. I've just never liked her in movies. She's fine in this. Like, she doesn't drag the movie. I don't care. She's fine. If anything, her character, if we're going to talk about history again, apparently her character is a little misrepresented there. But well, they make her seem kind of like she's kind of just like a dummy going along, and then she gets mad and leaves. Like, she actually had a fairly successful career after that. She worked in television, and she also was a songwriter and wrote some hit songs for some big artists, which they do mention a bit of in there's an epilogue for this movie that mentions it. So they make it seem like she didn't have any talent. Like, she's probably more talented than poor Ed, But they just made it seem like, she was the doting, supportive girlfriend until she just couldn't take it anymore and left. And I mean, there's a little bit more to it. Again, I don't mind. It's not a big deal. I mean, I guess if you're like a descendant of hers, you might mind because there's like, this is kind of like showing her kind of as a ditz or something when she actually, was a smart, talented woman that could succeed in the business that he couldn't. But anyway,
well, I mean, she seemed like she was a pretty big part of his operation. Like, she not only helped him with a lot of stuff, but was one of the main actresses he used.
Oh, she was. I mean, the whole point is like she stuck with him through a lot of it. It's just got to a point where she just couldn't handle it anymore. And the movie makes it seem like maybe, she should have, of course she should have stuck with him. I don't know. People have their own breaking points and choices. I have been I don't think there's any issue if somebody's a crossdresser, but I can understand if you're dating someone and finding out they're crossdresser, you're not a monster if that kind of weirds you out a bit,
That's something you need to know going into a marriage.
Yeah, because then like it doesn't necessarily have to change your whole perception of them, but it does change something a little bit. And I just don't think that necessarily makes you some intolerant asshole if you're like, okay, well, this is a lot all of a sudden, and I'm having trouble dealing with it. And that wasn't the only reason. It was part of also his like single-mindedness in his career, right? It wasn't like she just left him because she found out he was a crossdresser, because she didn't leave him at the first. It was
well, she stuck around.
It was a combination of that and like his single-mindedness and determination. Everything's failing around him, and she just felt like she didn't fit in anymore because of the people he surrounded himself with. And again, I don't think that necessarily makes her an intolerant bigot or anything like that. I can get feeling maybe like I just don't belong in this environment. So the movie I'm not saying the movie demonizes her, but maybe the movie is a little harsh on the real life person. But again, it's a movie, artistic license. And yeah, Sarah Jessica Parker's always a weakling for me. I've never liked her, but I'm not going to spend time dumping on her. There's no point.
It's like, you hear of people that get married and been married for whatever period of time, and all of a sudden one of them wants to have a sex change, Like, say you're with Caitlyn Jenner, when she was Bruce, That's kind of a deal breaker.
I mean, it's a huge change. It's a huge change.
Like,
and I mean,
when I entered into this relationship, I intended on being with this specific sex person,
Yeah. And so that doesn't, that doesn't make you prejudiced or anything.
But I think people nowadays
within that thing. Yeah. I mean, like I said, if it's somebody you don't know or anything like that, why should you care? But I mean, if it's somebody you have a close relationship with, of course it's going to affect you, and it takes a long time to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the case of somebody like Ed Wood, it's not a sex change thing. He's a man, and he's not confused about like his sexuality. He just,
Right.
So there's different levels, as they say, and there's the character played by Bill Murray, who is, you know, some sort of drag queen that all his life talked about getting a sex change, but never actually went through with it.
Until he saw Glenn or Glenda.
Well, he said Glenn or
with
Glenda was, well, that's what he said, but he never did.
Oh, he never did it.
No, that's also in the epilogue that, like, for decades after he talked about it, because remember, he tried in Mexico, the whole thing was a debacle. You know, they didn't actually have the, you know, the know-how or the equipment or anything like that, and people got robbed. But Bill Murray is one of my favorite actors. He has a very small role in this movie, but I do like the role, especially the part where after he watches Glenn or Glenda, and he says, because this is the moment. He said this was the moment where it gave him the courage. It's like, yes, I am going to have a sex change. And he goes, goodbye, penis. I love how he says that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's hilarious. Goodbye, penis. Like in front of everybody, and everyone kind of turns and looks.
Yeah.
But let's take a minute.
I'm not going to gush more about Bill Murray.
The cast? Yes. This is an all-star cast in this movie.
Martin Landau,
which we haven't mentioned yet, does an amazing job as Bela Lugosi. Sarah Jessica Parker.
He looks just like he did.
Jeffrey Jones, who wasn't a convicted pedophile yet, so he was still cool.
He's still cool. Oh man,
Vincent D'Onofrio, Bill Murray, you mentioned. Mike Starr was one of the first, I think, producers he met with, or I don't know, whatever his position was, film executive.
Although D'Onofrio is really just a stand-in.
Yeah, he does a great job.
He does not do the voice. That is not Vincent D'Onofrio doing those lines. He's dubbed. That's the guy who has the voice that sounds the most like him and plays him all the time, Maurice LaMarche. If people are familiar with animation, Maurice LaMarche is big name around. And I mean, the voice he does that sounds like crap. Am I still here? Okay, good. Is if you watch Pinky and the Brain, that's
what I was gonna say.
That's the voice that's the Orson Welles voice. So D'Onofrio looks the part great, but he doesn't have the voice, so they dub it with LaMarche, and it works pretty well.
Do you know if he did the voice on The Critic? They had a lot of Orson Welles stuff in the show. The Critic,
on the what?
The Critic, the cartoon.
Oh yeah. Oh, he
John
absolutely
Lovitz.
did. I don't remember what. Yeah, he was on The Critic. He did tons of characters on The Critic. He was one of the main voice actors on The Critic.
Cool. I love that show.
And I'm sure on The Critic, at least once he definitely did Wells on that show. Yeah. I can't remember when or what the context was, but I know he definitely did.
Bird's Eye Peas or something like that, like one of the ads that Orson actually did in real life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they redid that, and I think they did Rosebud a couple times.
Yeah, and he's also played him in one of the Simpsons Halloween episodes. Yeah, he's done the whole Orson Welles thing a long time, and I get it. He's got that voice. Anyway, I've always been a big fan of him. Animaniacs and all that stuff. Another very talented Canadian voice actor. But anyway, so yeah, that's a cool little bit having cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, Pinky and the Brain was part of Animaniacs, right? Because that's how Pinky and the Brain was. It was a segment on Animaniacs.
And then it became its own show afterward?
Then it spun off into its own show because it was popular. But originally, they usually it'd be like the middle segment. There'd be an Animaniacs segment, a Pinky and the Brain, and then they'd end with another Animaniacs. But yeah, at one point, do you know, like, they retooled Pinky and the Brain and crossed it over and took Elmira from Tiny Toon Adventures and threw her in for like a half a dozen episodes. They had Pinky and the Brain and Elmira. How fucked up was that? It did not.
When was that?
I don't know, like maybe 95 or something.
Oh, so soon after.
Yeah. I don't know how many episodes it ran for, but yeah.
We've got Martin Landau's daughter, Juliette Landau, playing Loretta King.
Yeah, who I didn't even know existed. I didn't know anything about her. Apparently, she was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, she was Drusilla. If you ever watched the show,
No, never watched the show.
Oh, never watched it. Okay, well,
no.
Drusilla is a pretty popular character.
I'm sure. She's done some voice work too. Not a lot, but a little bit. But yeah, not a huge career. But just looking. Yeah, actually, she's done. That's mostly what she's done lately. She had a recurring role on Ben 10. which is a show I never watched, but I know what it is. That's an animated show. But anyway, yeah. So I didn't even I looked her up and was like, yeah, it definitely is his daughter, but I did not know like she was an actress with her. Anyway, yeah. So she's an interesting character too. This woman he mistakes for like a rich heiress that he thinks can finance his next film.
Who is not a rich heiress?
No, not at all. She's just some woman trying to make it on her own in Hollywood.
Did she con him? I never understood that. Like, was she?
It was just a misunderstanding. He just assumed.
Okay.
He saw like what she said about like she paid for like something with like $100 bill at the diner where he saw her. So he figured that meant she had a ton of money. And then when he talked to her and told her like the movie could be financed for $60,000, she says, "Well, that's really reasonable for a whole movie." Yeah. So that made him think that she meant like she could like kick in the whole thing. Yeah. But no, she was just some ordinary young woman that had just sort of taken what money she had and gone to Hollywood to see what she could do and fell in with her. And to his credit, he doesn't like flip out on her or anything because that's just not his style.
That's kind of was the nail in the coffin of his marriage, his first marriage, because he
because he thought she was fine. Yeah, he thought she was financing the film. So when she asked for like the main female role, he felt he had to give it to her. So that was the other thing, right? That's a good bit too, because at first when she asked for a role in the movie, he's like, "Oh, okay, well, there's the I don't remember what he says. He's something like there's the reporter, the stenographer, but then she's like, no, she's referring to it. It's just like, this is the role you'd have to have. It's the main role this girlfriend has. And then later, after he's fighting with his girlfriend, she's flipping out on him for giving her the part. And he goes, well, there's still other roles you can play. She's like what? And he's like, oh, the stenographer, the reporter.
Yeah.
And she like
the
throws
clerk or whatever.
Yeah, the
secretary or the clerk or whatever it is.
There's some good comedic stuff in this movie, as you'd expect. Yeah. And Johnny Depp's delivery is really good. He really inhabits the character. I also love the movie just because I've said the world is set in. It's full of references and allusions to sort of golden era Hollywood. It's funny. Golden era Hollywood is happening at the time of this, but they're on the bottom rung. They're not in it. When he takes his movie to the Warner Brothers executive guy, and says, "Oh, I really want to, do business with you," and he doesn't know who he is, so he says, "Yeah, I'll watch your movie, and then maybe we can do business." And then remember, they're watching his movie, and they're watching Glenn or Glenda, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?" They can't even believe it's real.
Yeah.
And the guy, and he goes, "Oh, it's got to be a joke, right?"
Yeah.
He goes, "It's got to be like one of Billy." He goes, "It's got to be one of Billy Wellman's pop practical jokes." That's what it is. Anyway, by Billy Wellman, he's referring to famous director William A. Wellman, who was a big-time director back then. In the Silent Age, he did one of the biggest movies of the Silent Age, the 1927 movies Wings. I'm sure you've heard the title. He did the famous gangster movie Public Enemy in 1931. And he did the first version, which would be remade 3 times. He did the 1937 A Star is Born, a movie that would be remade 3 more fucking times. So he was, a big-time director. I couldn't find much about like his personality, but maybe he had like a reputation as a guy that played pranks. I don't know. But that's who he meant when he said Billy Wellman. He meant William A. Wellman. So that's kind of cool. So I just liked, references and things like that. Because golden era Hollywood is happening. Sunset Boulevard and all this stuff's going on. But, they're to the outside of it. They're the fringe doing the B-movie stuff. And even like the first producer he worked with, like, he's like, I don't make art. I'm not here for like, sensitive directors trying to tell their stories. I make crap. And that really puts into perspective like how bad Glenn or Glenda is. Because this guy knows he makes crap. It's low budget, schlocky crap. And he is like horrified by how bad Glenn or Glenda is. It's like, it's the worst piece of shit I've ever seen. And I paid money for it. Oh my God. It's funny, but it's sad. Good stuff though. I'm trying to remember what happens after Glenn or Glenda. What's sort of the next thing? I guess that the movie you're talking about was Bride of the Atom. He was trying to get Bride of the Atom made. So that's when he meets Loretta King and thinks that anyway, he ultimately finds like some like meatpacking millionaire.
Yeah.
And gets him to finance it. And again, this is 100% true. That's what happened. It's true that the guy said he'd only do it if the movie ended with a big explosion. And he also said the movie would only go forward if his son could be leading man. That's all true. So it's pretty funny. It's too bad they changed the name from Bride of the Atom to Bride of the Monster.
Bride of the Monster, yeah. That's
seems a little backwards too, because I thought the whole point was they were moving out of the monster stuff and into the atomic sci-fi stuff. So I'm a little surprised that because that's initially what gets the Warner Brothers exec's attention. You know, before he sees Glenn or Glenda, he says, "Well, I have this one called Bride of the Atom." He goes, "Atom." He goes, "Atomic age stuff, huh?" He goes, "I like it." You know, because that was what was hip in the early 50s. But yeah, so that's the next thing they go on to is Bride of the Atom, and that's where he starts recruiting people. Now he has a leading role for Bella, one that actually makes more sense, you know. And then he goes to the wrestling match and he sees the Swedish wrestler Tor Johnson or whatever his name is, and again, the movie almost presents it like it was like a new idea. It wasn't wrestlers that had already been used in movies, and Tor Johnson himself this wasn't his first time on screen, but still pretty cool. Pretty cool using
George the Animal Steel.
Yeah, not familiar. Is he really that hairy, or do they make him more hairy for the movie?
I don't know.
Because my God,
his area is
he's like a fucking Sasquatch.
God.
He's like
gross.
He looks like the missing link.
He's like worked the neck or whatever. He's giving him a massage, and he just takes like an entire chicken and takes a bite out of it, just like a rotisserie chicken.
Yeah, I love it. You couldn't pay me enough to touch that, man. Yeah, I don't know much about the guy that played him. I assume is also a wrestler.
Mm-hmm. I don't know much about him either.
Yeah, because I did look up Tor Johnson, Swedish wrestler who had quite the full career. He was 6'3" and over 400 pounds. So I want to see how big this guy was. The old George the Animal Steel.
He's got to be
George the Animal Steel. No, he's not. He's smaller.
Really?
He's only about 6'1", 275.
He looks so big in the movie.
Yeah, well, maybe they do stuff to make him look big. So, because Tor Johnson was, like you said, a mountain of a man. He really was 6'3" and about 425 pounds. Insane. But yeah, so that was the next thing was the Bride of the Atom stuff, and we did get to see a little bit of how he made Glenn or Glenda, but it's quick. But this is where you really get to see his thing. Like, okay, one shot, perfect, move on.
Yeah, we got it. Put it in the can. Print.
We got it. I'm like, really? What? And so then he meets Criswell or Criskin or whatever his name is, and he gets the idea for him. They're like, you got to sell yourself better because like my whole career is just me lying to people and it works.
Yeah.
So he's like, you gotta razzle dazzle, and that's where, that's actually before, and that's what sort of gives him the idea to try to get producers and people, outside of the Hollywood world to finance his movies. And he meets Vampira at the party, and she wants nothing to do with him. But then her show gets canceled. So again, it shows what a soft heart he has, because he's trying to get her. I mean, yes, he is trying to use her a bit, but he is a legitimate fan of hers. And he's like, "Oh, could you maybe just talk to the investors, And she's like, "No, fuck off, loser." She leaves.
Yeah.
But then later she calls him up because her show got canceled, and he's like, "Fine, okay, be in my movies. I'll give you work." So he was a kind guy that wanted to help people out. He was a people pleaser type person. The Vampira show ran from April 30th, 1954 to April of 1955, so only a year.
Oh wow!
But back then they shot a lot of episodes, so 50 episodes, not bad.
Did he meet her on this set, Tim Burton? I know they got married.
Oh, the actress?
Lisa Marie. Because he cheated on her with the Sweeney Todd chick.
Helena Bonham Carter, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Which I don't know.
She met Tim Burton's at a Starbucks in New York on New Year's Eve in 1992. She had just quit modeling for Calvin Klein. And of course he was married at that time too. And anyway, they got engaged. They got engaged in 93. And anyway, he put her in a few movies. Burton abruptly ended the relationship following the premiere of 2001's Planet of the Apes, which he directed. Marie had a small role in the film, while Burton's new girlfriend, Helena Bonham Carter, was one of the lead actresses. Yeah. So, she didn't have much of a career. She was just small roles here and there. I mean, he kind of made her in a way, but it's not like she was a big actress. She was a model.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, Yeah, but like a lot of people, Tim Burton had the same problems a lot of these guys. Like they didn't have a girlfriend and then break up. You know, their girlfriends were overlapping a little bit.
Right.
But,
I've heard people say that on movie sets. That's pretty common. Like, people that are maybe, romantic interests in the movie, they actually have a, chemistry or whatever.
yeah, I mean, I spent most of my life as a young person, like trying to give people benefit of the doubt and not believe in that stuff because stuff seems so on the nose and obvious. It's like, it's not really like that. But I mean, the thing that kind of ended that for me was like, and again, I'm not a person that cares about this, but everybody knew that Brad Pitt was married to, what's her name from
Jennifer
Friends?
Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston. So he's massive A-list and she's like C-list, kind of, big as TV goes, but she's not like a movie star or anything like that. It's like, well, to me, that's love because, there's people way above her he could be with, but, they're, they really love each other, stick it out. Then it's like, and then I remember reading, he does Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Angelina Jolie and people are like, people on the set seeing them, between scenes getting close and stuff like that. I'm like, horseshit. It's not because, again, it has nothing to do with an unwavering faith in Brad Pitt's morals or anything like that. Nothing like that. It's just me thinking, they're actors. This, they have romantic scenes. This happens all the fucking time. But no, the most predictable thing in the world actually does happen. He and Angelina Jolie, become a thing. He dumps Aniston. And from that point on, I'm like, okay, I get it. People are like, I'm giving people way too much credit. Like, people are dumb and simple, and they do the obvious thing, So yeah. So now I do believe in that. But back then I didn't. I'd be like, nah, just because people have like a romantic scene or they're around each other a lot doesn't mean anything. They're actors, they're professionals. But no, they're just as horny and fallible as anybody else. So it's just like, I'm sorry, Jennifer, but I just did a bunch of shower scenes with Angelina Jolie, and I think I want that to be part of my regular life now. Yeah. So bye-bye.
Well, I do want to say I don't think she was C-list by that point. When they got married, she was definitely an A-list actress. Like,
yeah, maybe I'm just discounting her fame because I never cared about the main thing she was famous for, and I'm underestimating just how popular that is. I just always hold movies higher than TV. I mean, I know she had roles in movies, but she wasn't leading any movies. And I mean,
she
Pitt
was eventually. I mean, they weren't really great movies, but
I just mean, you look at Brad Pitt's movie career and hers, and his destroys hers. As I'm just doing math. I'm just doing math here. I'm not talking about who I like better. I'm just doing simple math. No. Brad Pitt is like this icon, guy.
I would say now her name's probably more of a household name than his.
Yeah, maybe that's how it worked out.
Because I mean, he doesn't really, make a lot of movies anymore. So.
And there were obviously actors that were much more beautiful and younger than her, too, is also what I'm saying. He's Brad Pitt. Obviously, he could have his pick of various supermodels and stuff. I'm not saying she wasn't attractive. I'm just saying, if you're Brad Pitt, you can aim way higher. So to me, I was like, this is proof, they really love each other. Because, I mean, she's not really on his level fame-wise or attractiveness-wise. But, and I guess that's what, and then eventually he's like, Angelina Jolie trumps her. Yeah, I mean, I get it. To me, if you break it down to math, obviously Angelina Jolie is way hotter and more successful and stuff like that. But I
don't think so.
You don't think Angelina Jolie's had a better career than Jennifer Aniston?
Better career? What has she done? Tomb Raider?
Tons of stuff. Tons of stuff, man.
No.
I mean, she makes way more money.
I mean, what's the Matthew Lillard movie Hackers? She was in that.
That's right, that's before she became a big star. But I'm talking about like by the time you get to the 2000s, she's basically she's as A-list as they get.
I mean, yeah, she does a lot of movies, but good movies. She did two Tomb Raider movies.
I mean, I'm just saying she's in big movies. I didn't say they're my favorite movies. I'm just saying big movies.
Yeah, she was making bad.
I mean, and some of them were like notable bombs, like
I don't like Angelina Jolie. That's probably coming across in this.
I don't really have an opinion on her one way or another, but I just mean she's in a lot of massively successful movies. Even just her voice, like she's in the Kung Fu Panda movies. Those movies are juggernauts, and that's just her fucking voice.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith. She was in the Korn video.
She was in Maleficent, which I don't think was a good movie, but again, a massive Disney vehicle. She's the main. She's the main person in that. She's going to be in Eternals, which is, a massive Disney Marvel movie. She's also, she probably could have been in more movies, but she decided she was a director, so she took time out of her actress career to direct a bunch of stuff. And again, why could she do this? Because of her reputation and stuff. Like,
she had to go collect kids like Beanie Babies. She had to go get a kid from
don't tell me that Jennifer Aniston could ever direct a movie. Like, nobody would ever let her do that. I can't imagine anybody saying, yes, you should direct movies. But, and again, this isn't a talent thing. I'm just talking about the success and reputations they've accrued. I can't imagine anybody being like, that seems like a good idea. Jennifer Aniston directing movies. But people thought that about Angelina Jolie, right? Rightly or wrongly. Again, I don't care about Angelina Jolie. I'm simply talking about her success.
I dislike her as a person and as an actress more than you dislike Jennifer Aniston. So I guarantee you.
Maybe. That. I mean, I don't really dislike Jennifer Aniston so much as I dislike Friends as a whole. She's one part of Friends, which I hate, but she's only one part of it. I can't put all my hate on her. I can't blame Jennifer Aniston for Friends because there's a bunch of other people involved. So that's true. So I don't have like super hard hatred for Jennifer Aniston. It's only partial. But anyway, I'm just saying and maybe things have swung the other way, but I mean, throughout the 2000s, it's pretty clear, who had the bigger, more successful career and who was considered more A-list, if you want to talk about that kind of stuff. Again, none of this matters to me. It's all meaningless crap.
I mean,
I'm just saying, it was always clear to me that Brad Pitt going, to her, because of Friends becoming so valuable now.
Right. I mean, the residuals from Friends, I'm sure still is nice,
Well, I mean, you'd be set for life with just that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sure, Angelina Jolie made
which is another thing I don't agree with.
She made a bunch of shitty, mediocre movies and got paid really well.
Very few movies that I think are good. Like, one of the only movies I think is good that she's good in is I like Girl Interrupted a lot. That's like one. And then, there's movies like Taking Lives that didn't even do well, that I kind of like Taking Lives, but it's by no means a great movie. It's not. Wanted is silly. I like it despite its silliness.
Is that Ethan Hawke in that?
Ethan Hawke's in Taking Lives, yeah.
Yeah,
the movie did not perform well. I like it, but it did not perform well. So it's not like an example of one of her successful movies. It was not successful. But I mean, they even did another Maleficent movie. I have no idea why. I guess I can only assume the first Maleficent was a success. Assault's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. Anyway, I don't want to go on about Angelina Jolie. I only brought her up as an example of, again, people being so predictable. Because it's like, if I read an article about Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they were seen canoodling or getting close, I'd be like, that's just, the press, blowing stuff out of proportion. But no, it turned out to be exactly that. So that was really a learning experience for me. It's just like, there's nothing special or professional about actors. They make all the same dumb choices and mistakes. So, I mean, and again, it's so easy if you look at even somebody like, again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, what's his name? Burton. But as we see, like, Burton seems to move from woman to woman too. But I don't care. It's the nature of the business, I suppose.
I'm being challenged to some Friends trivia here. I will definitely.
Okay, we're not doing any Friends trivia on this show.
Not here. I know.
Jay is free to do Friends trivia wherever he wants, but not on this fucking show. So
one day,
RetroCack, you will get your day to face off with Jay with Friends trivia, but I will not be a part of it. Anyway, trying to get back on track with the movie here.
Favorite episode of Friends? Go.
The one with Jean-Claude Van Damme, obviously. Easily.
Thought you were going to say
it has Jean-Claude Van Damme in it, so it's my favorite. That's a good one too. But I mean, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Is that what it's called? Because I know Friends episodes are called The One With. That's their title. So called. Is it called The One With Jean-Claude Van Damme? Because that seems like the obvious thing to do. Anyway, that would be my favorite. He shows off his butt and says how he can crush walnuts with it or something. Best moment of comedy in the history of the show. Easily.
It's called The One After the Super Bowl, Part 2.
I can't believe they didn't give him top billing. Those motherfuckers. There's just another reason for me to hate them even more.
Do the splits.
Biggest star they've ever had. The most talented, awesome guy they've ever had on that wretched show, and they don't even. Oh well.
Yeah, I'm starting a new channel.
Right. So,
It's called the Friends Discussion Pocket Dimension.
and of course, I'll sue you. I swear to God. We've got contracts written down, and you're in violation. But yeah. So it's during this movie that Bella checks himself into rehab. But it also has the great part where like they steal the octopus from the movie studio, and they have this. I mean, again, it's ridiculous. It's one of like it's a great movie. I know there's a term for it, but when things are really funny but also really sad, and it's like 4 a.m. because they can't like shoot in the day or they'll get caught, and they've got like Bella out in like some horrible dirty water with the octopus. And he's like, and he gets into the water, the poor old, frail old man, and is like, now fight with it. And they're like, well, does it move? And it's like, there's a motor? They forgot to steal the motor. So poor Bella has to go, like, and that's, if you see the movie, and I've seen the movie, that's what it is. It's horrible fakeness of poor Bella Lugosi going, and shaking and grabbing the arms around, trying to make it seem like it's killing him. It's so sad and so funny at the same time. And I mean, after the movie, I mean, you know, it feels like a movie, even though it is real life too, and with the beats. Because after the movie happens, that's when Dolores, Sarah Jessica Parker, walks out on him. Lugosi tries to commit suicide because his unemployment benefits been cut off. That's when he checks into rehab. You know, but at the same time, things do pick up because that's when Ed runs into Kathy O'Hara, who would become his wife after that.
Mm-hmm.
And he does, well, I guess what you said he does. They have one little innocent date. And he says, you know, I know it's just our first date, but I guess I should tell you, I like to dress up in women's clothing. And she goes, okay. Yeah. And then they go from there.
Yeah.
So he does like he does the honest and upfront thing. He realizes, you know, I shouldn't keep it a secret. It could come a problem later. And even though it's weird to tell her on the first date, fuck it, I'll tell her on the first date. And she's like, oh, okay.
Like, well, she asked, does that mean you don't like sex with women? And he's like, oh, no, I love sex with women.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So that was pretty much the sticking point for her.
Yeah, that's all that mattered to her.
So you're not gay, right? So then, I mean, you're into women.
So now things do pick up a little because now he has like a new person supporting him. So he has like renewed energy going forth from there. And then, of course, this is all the lead up to Plan 9. And again, what's in the movie is true. Like that movie, its funding came from a Baptist church. The Baptist church got the idea themselves that if we help fund a movie and it's successful, the money it gets will give us enough money to fund our own like religious style movies. Like they knew this wasn't going to be a religious movie. They said, we'll make a popular Hollywood movie. And if it makes big profits, we can use the profits to make our own thing. And of course, they're so clueless. They wind up with the worst director in the world, making the worst movie in the world. And some of the best movies of that are them watching him making the movie. And one of them is just like, they watch him like do a terrible take and move on. It's like, do you know anything about filmmaking? Huh. They're so right. It's like, yes, I think I know a thing or two. Like, yeah. I can't remember why Vampira says like, you know, she'll be in the movie, but she doesn't want any lines. I don't know why. But she does say like to him, she wants her part to be mute. And he's like, okay, he rolls with everything, the poor guy. If people say you can't do this, you have to do this, he just rolls with it. And the funny thing is, like, they keep getting on his nerves about stuff, but it's not until there's a scene where he's shooting a scene and he's in full drag, and they get mad at him. That's where he goes, I can't take it anymore, and gets in the car and takes off to go to the bar. I love how, like, it's one thing that they, like, you know, they're angry about, like, his process, and they want to compromise his vision because they're saying, you know, this is about people, you know, grave robbing and bringing the dead back to life. We find that like sacrilegious. Like and then they tell him you have to change. It was supposed to be Grave Robbers from Outer Space, and they tell him to change the name. They go, how about Plan 9 from Outer Space? Because it's called Plan 9 in the script. He's like, that's terrible. What's funny is he does later change his mind, thinks it's a better title. But at the time, he's like, so it's funny that, like, you know, they're hacking away his artistic integrity, and, you know, on him about everything about the movie. But I love how the last straw is they get mad at him for cross-dressing. Then he goes, that's it, I can't take it anymore. I love that. And that's, of course, when he goes to the bar and runs into and has the famous, I'm pretty sure never actually happened, encounter with Orson Welles, who helps, you know, rekindle his inspiration. Because again, they are so different. One is a legitimately super talented legend of film, but he's going through his own hard times too, and they share that bond. Like, they understand, you know, having producers and executive meddling and people messing with your vision and your creativity. and all that. And I think that is a really great scene, even if it's made up, because it's so cool to have that link between people that are so far apart on the spectrum, but in that way, they're the same. I love that. I really do. And of
You were
course, the
talking
movie
about
ends with them going to the premiere, and he's gonna go and he's gonna get married, and it's a good ending point. Because for those who don't know, obviously that movie was as terrible as all the others, and by the time you get into the '60s, the only movies he could make were pornographic movies. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It must be a little bit of a lag.
Crap, was I
Uh,
cutting out?
no, I don't think you heard me until a little bit of time had passed. But no, I was just going to say you mentioned he was
Sorry,
doing it
something
for
must have happened. I didn't.
the Baptist church, I believe it was, because they all got baptized.
This is confusing because for me, everything seems normal. Oh, everything seems normal for me. So if there's
Shit. Can you hear
shit,
me?
sorry.
Make sure can you hear me okay? No. Okay, you can.
Yes, that's right. They did all get
Oh,
baptized as part of it. I forgot about that. I can hear you. Yes, you're right. We're doing it with a lag. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna go out and come in.
okay.
Just hold on. I will return.
I was just going to mention that during the Baptist church is funding one of those films was at the Bride of the Atom or whatever it was. So they all go and get baptized. But it kind of reminded me of, I'm going to ask Cole about this when he gets back, but the
Maybe that will help. I don't know.
the
Sorry.
amusement
For
park.
me, for
Did you ever
me,
see the
nothing
amusement
looked.
park? Oh, sorry.
No, I was just explaining. For me, nothing seemed different, so I just kept blabbing. So I'm sorry if there is a lag. It's probably gonna when I watch this, it's gonna just be me talking over you, which I really hate seeing. So maybe this will help.
But I was talking about they was funded by the church in 1975. George Romero did a film for the Lutheran Church that wasn't released until I think earlier this year, like wide release, called The Amusement Park.
Oh, okay. I'd heard that. I didn't know that it was for the Lutheran Church, though. That's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was all about aging, like older people, and how they were treated in society. I think the Lutherans were trying to make a point about that, but obviously they got Romero to do it, so it wound up being like really dark, and way like darker than they wanted. So
Yeah.
it's
Some
not
things, yeah,
great.
you
I
just
mean,
can't change.
I wouldn't say it's terrible. It is streaming on Shudder for those of you that have Shudder, or at least it was. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I do like Romero, obviously, and he was a talented guy, but I don't know. I kind of feel like everything that I've seen was. Because, I mean, a lot of people all think that, like, Martin is super underrated, but I don't get really anything out of Martin.
Another black and white movie.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's black and white.
Yeah, I like Martin
that
quite a
always
bit.
had see, there seemed to be like it seemed to have a pretty strong reputation. I guess maybe it was a little overhyped for me. I don't know what it was because people were like, that's like that. If you talk about Romero, like Martin's like his like really sort of underrated gem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't dislike it. It's just never hit me that way. I guess. I mean, I kind of like it. I mean, it's a small, like a lot of Romero stuff, small, low budget kind of fare. Martin is in color. I'm sure I
Yeah,
saw it in black and white.
I thought I did. Maybe parts of it are in black and white. It's been a while since I've seen it though. I'm sure you're right,
I
Jake.
feel
We just
like
need
for
to.
sure I saw it in black and white. That's weird. My memories of it are in black and white. I think I saw it in black and white. There must be some black and white version of it or something. Maybe it didn't get a wide release or whatever in color, but I'm sure I saw it in black and white because it has not been that long since I've seen it. Maybe 2 or 3 years. I'll
Yeah,
have
that
to look
was
into
1 year
that
after, 76.
because, yeah, I don't remember color in that movie at all. It's weird that we both remember it that way.
So does it say it somewhere on here? I don't know. It doesn't matter, but says color and black and white. So I don't know. Maybe parts of it are one, but black and white. Parts are in color.
I mean, people say it's in color. I believe them, but I'm pretty sure I watched it in black and white somehow in some circumstances. I mean, sometimes black and white versions of movies exist. Like, yeah. Because I saw a black and white version of The Mist.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I never.
Remember the Stephen King movie, The Mist? There's a black and white version of that. I saw that. So
that's
sometimes
how
movies do get black and white versions released. Because I'm almost positive Martin was black and white when I saw it. I mean, sometimes you just misremember, so I'm not sure. Anyway, I always heard that it had such a strong reputation. I felt kind of let down when I saw it, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just recently heard, that they were releasing that other one, but I did not know the story behind it. I didn't know what it was about, and I did not know it was funded for the Lutheran Church or anything. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think kind of similar to what we're talking about here. I think, oh damn it, I just said his name. Darabont, Frank Darabont. When he directed the Mist, he originally intended it to be in black and white, but the studio wouldn't let him release it that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if moving will help.
Okay.
Maybe get a little closer to the router. Come with me.
And we'll see.
The lighting out here sucks.
A world of pure imagination.
In a world of pure imagination. Fucking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe this will help. I don't know. Still kind of choppy for me. I don't know. There's nothing else I can do. I don't know. Something happened last night, but I've not recovered from it. Whatever it's going on. It's messing up a good episode.
Maybe you can reboot your router after the show's over. It may fix it. Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on?
I mean, I did last night after the debacle that was last night, but I'm not sure what else I can do. I don't. No, that never occurred to me. But, okay. Maybe we're a little smoother here. I don't know. But, yeah. But, I mean, the best part of the movie for me was towards the end in watching them, just watching the making of Plan 9. Because I'm so familiar with Plan 9 because I've seen it a few times. It shows, they do that montage and show a bunch of scenes from it. They don't quite, it's funny, they still can't capture how bad it is. Like, for instance, like the part where, like, the main alien commander is doing that part where he's yelling at the humans, and saying, like, how we're going to destroy ourselves. And he's at that part, like, and he goes, "Your stupid, stupid minds." Like, they show that in this movie, but it's not, the line isn't delivered nearly as well. In the original, he's like, "You're stupid, your stupid, stupid minds." Like, he really says stupid instead of stupid. And then the guy punches him. There's a few things like that where they don't quite nail just how bad it actually is. Other times they do, though. Like, there's a part where, like, the copper, whoever gets killed by the big Tor Johnson zombie, he kills him by just going, like that, like that's their big action scene. He goes, "Huh," and the guy falls down. And cut. But yeah, I just get a kick out of it because I've seen Plan 9 a few times, so it's neat seeing those scenes being recreated fairly faithfully.
I've never actually sat down and watched Plan 9. I mean, I've seen scenes from it plenty of times, but yeah, I don't care for it. It's a little too hokey for my taste.
And we also forgot to say that they actually attended the premiere of Bride of the Monster, and they get chased out of the theater by an angry mob. I don't know if that actually happened or not, but it's funny.
Hell of a premiere.
See, I think you could. That even though it's one you could get, I think you could get through it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I do it. I mean, it is kind of the movie that invented so bad it's good. Like it's one that I can appreciate the badness and enjoy it. I also love that it is Plan 9. Yeah, I like the idea that they had like 8 other plans that all failed, and now they're on 9. They're like, I don't raise the dead and scare them. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
It's so dumb. And you showing the guy the set, and he's like, well, you're going to be the pilot here. And he's like, great, where's the cockpit? And he's like, you're standing in it. And it's just like 2 chairs. I love that stuff. I hope things would get.
Did Bela Lugosi ever?
There's still obviously a leg.
Did he ever actually get clean? Do we know that, or is that just orchestrated for the movie?
I don't think he got clean. I think he was so close to death anyway. Like,
Yeah.
he died like within a year of that. And of course, the big thing I forgot to mention that everybody probably knows about Plan 9 is that Bella died before they filmed Plan 9. So they only had some, footage of him shot in front of his house, just sort of moving around a cape that didn't have any point. And then they used narration to make it have a point. Saying he was some guy whose wife just died and everything. And then for the scenes that they needed him in the graveyard, they used his wife's chiropractor because he thought he looked kind of like him, but he kept the cape up over his face for the whole thing. What's even better is he would use him in a couple of other movies anyway. It's like, oh, this chiropractor's got a real talent. I need him for my next picture. Which is pretty funny.
Yeah. They were like, I can't see it. And then he
I will
puts
not
his
take the
cape
Trash
up.
Humpers challenge. Yeah.
It's Harmony Korine. Gummo. Kids. You've probably seen some of his stuff. Spring Breakers, he did. Julian Donkey Boy.
Oh, that's rough. Did I tell you my link to Julian Donkey Boy?
I think you probably have, but I've forgotten.
Well, when I was talking about the first time I saw this movie, I mixed up dates, and I talked about, 20 years ago, September 2001 when I arrived here as an 18-year-old student. And it turned out that's not when I first saw this movie. It was a few years later. It was just my second go around at university. But for real, it's 20 years ago, September 2001, during Frosh Week, when they were doing like the various Frosh hazing stuff, which wasn't too bad. They didn't do anything bad. Part of it was like we all had to wear these completely white Frosh shirts, and then they would like write degrading things on it. Somebody wrote Julian Donkey Boy on mine, and I didn't even know what it meant because I did not know the movie back then. So I got off pretty easy. I mean, the person next to me, somebody wrote fetus fucker on his. So.
Yeah, definitely better. Because no one probably even knows what that
we didn't have to
reference.
Yeah, we didn't have to. I didn't know it. We didn't have to do anything too degrading, though. The worst thing probably was like my first night after I went to bed. Like a bunch of guys came in and yelled and woke me up at like 3:30 in the morning. Made me go outside to do something. Wasn't bad though. Because I get that hazing's bad, but no, this was light, all in good fun hazing. There was nothing degrading or abusive about it. It was fine.
Doesn't Werner Herzog star in Julian Donkey Boy or as a supporting role?
I don't remember. It's been too long. Because I did eventually see it, but back then I didn't know what the hell it was. I think so. We're going to do a Werner Herzog series one of these days, by the way. That's the one we talk about. But something interesting to me about this movie is that the screenplay was written by Scott Alexander and Larry Kawazuski, and it was the only screen movies they'd done before this were the two problem child movies, and they basically wrote this screenplay because they wanted to prove they could do something that wasn't that. And I'm trying to think I'm trying to remember how they met Burton. I don't know. Anyway, they met somebody that had some connection to Heather's, and that person knew Burton, and that's how they got hooked up with Burton, and that's how that came to be. But I mean, what's funny is they did go on to write some other interesting things, and what's kind of top, and maybe this will take us to a little side thing, is they didn't really write great stuff. But I watched Dirty Work not too long ago in honor of the departed Norm Macdonald, but he did another movie a few years later with another one of the greatest comedians, although it's a terrible movie. It's funny. You can take amazing comedians and still have bad movies. He did a movie with Dave Chappelle in 2000 called Screwed. And the script was written by these guys.
Okay.
Same guys.
Yeah, I've never seen Screwed.
They were also it's also the only thing they ever directed. They were the directors of it. Screwed has Danny DeVito in it. So there's another Tim Burton link.
Norm and Dave Chappelle's in that too, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, two of the funniest guys ever, but it's a terrible movie.
This bad? Okay.
And the good thing that came from that movie is that they didn't know each other at the time, and it kind of struck up a bit of a friendship because they didn't know each other before they made the movie. So that's kind of cool. But that's the only thing they directed. But they continued to write some other stuff. Well, this is probably their most serious thing. They got the Golden Globe for Best Screenplay for their next movie, The People vs. Larry Flint. So they've had some success. But it's interesting that before this movie, the only thing they'd done was Problem Child 1 and 2. Fuck, I hate how everything looks normal for me, but it obviously isn't. Because Jay would not be pausing.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess you want to go ahead and wrap it up? Since we're having so many difficulties.
I mean, we're going to kind of have to. Yeah, we're going to kind of have to. I mean, I wanted to talk more about Burton's career and his other films, but this is kind of not working out, unfortunately.
We'll have time. We'll do more. We'll do more of his. Hopefully.
Yeah. But yeah, I have to correct whatever this issue is, so we don't have more shows like this. But I mean, I don't know how much is getting through, but I'll just say I like this movie a lot. I'm glad to have seen it again after so many years. It holds up well. Great visual style. I'm glad it's in black and white. Most of the casting's pretty good. It's an interesting, Ed Wood's just an interesting guy. It's sad, but it's also inspiring at the same time because I think he was a good person. I didn't get into his later years, but in the 1960s, the only way he could stay in film was by doing pornographic movies, which he did not like at all. He did not enjoy that. And, he got sick in the 70s and fell into alcoholism. And that's what ultimately killed him. He died of a heart attack brought on by his alcoholism. And when he died, they didn't even have any money to bury him properly. It's all wretchedly sad. He got, let's see, wait a second. Get into a thing here. Yeah, he and his wife, Kathy stayed with him, and they were so poor, they got evicted from their shitty apartment. Then 3 days later, they were staying at a friend's house. That's when he died of the heart attack. According to Rudolph Gray's book, Nightmare of Ecstasy, the medics carried Ed's body away in plastic garbage bags. He was reportedly in agony in his last moments.
That's terrible. Yeah.
I still remember when I went into that room that afternoon, he was dead. His eyes and his mouth were wide open. I'll never forget the look in his eyes. He clutched at the sheets. It looked like he'd seen hell. So just such a sad, terrible ending. And I'm glad the movie ends where it does, because even though he just made another terrible movie, he felt good about it, so it still feels like a high note. because man, the rest of his life was rough. But he's a guy that never gave up and kept trying, so that's inspiring too. And at the end of the day, he still did people. You know, he was a good friend and he made people happy. And now his legacy is maybe not what he would have wanted, but he still makes people happy in a different way, even if they're kind of making fun of him. You know, so we all leave different legacies, and that was his. And as I said, I think Burton felt an affinity for him, felt a connection, and was drawn to it, and that's why he wanted to tell his story. And I think Burton was a really good choice to tell his story. So it's too bad the movie wasn't initially successful, which, you know, seems kind of appropriate being that it's about Ed Wood, the least successful director around. But over time, it's been evaluated, and critics and people like it, and I definitely am a fan. Like, I like it a lot, and it's probably the Burton movie I bring up to people that don't know it, because, you know, people know his more obvious stuff. So it's a different kind of movie, and I guess not for everybody. Maybe some people find it a little dull, but I've always found it really interesting. And obviously, a lot of credit goes to Depp too. Very earnest, strong performance. So we'll wrap up. So yeah, this one's going to be hard to watch if it's just me cutting out or talking over Jay for most of it.
I can't tell. Like, on my end, it's not as bad as it is for you. So I don't know. I don't know what's actually going on to YouTube right now. So I guess we'll see. But it's not our first time to have a problem like this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, the way it works for me right now is like I see and hear myself fine. Nothing changes. But sometimes, you know, I can tell by the way you're not moving or reacting that it's obviously not happening. Like right now, I can hear you, but I don't. Your video's not right for me. So it's messed up. So sorry about that, guys. I will try to take steps so that we can move past these issues and have a better show going ahead.
Thanks for watching, guys.
So I'll let Jay end it because I'm not sure where it would stop for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for watching as always, and we'll try to be back next week with a new episode. Shooting for Tuesday, but I don't know. Sometimes things happen and we have to change the date. So shooting for that, and yeah, we'll try to get a few more episodes. And so thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.